Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Caramel Sportscast. I am your host, Steven Avalos, alongside my good friend Marissa Dorr.
Hi.
Now, unfortunately, my dad isn't here right now. He's with family, during this whole election thing. And, it is a pretty crazy day right now. Hopefully, things have like somewhat blown over to some degree by the time this is posted. We hope all of you that were able to have voted. We sure did. We're not going to speak on it any further. We're not going to try to politicize everything, but we just say that it's good to vote, American thing to do, and let's just hope that everything goes well for everyone. So, anyways, let's just get to it with sports. So, before we go over our picks for Week 9, we're gonna recap how we did last week. So, I was 9-5 straight up, but 4-10 against the spread. My spread picks have been really bad for the last 3 weeks. My dad went 5-9 straight up and 6-8 against the spread, so a really ugly week for him. Unfortunately, I really feel like I was really digging into my dad on that one there. And Marissa, you went 8-6 straight up, but 4-10 against the spread.
Ouch.
Yeah, so very so-so weeks for us. We mostly did well straight up, but none of us did well against the spread at all. And it was pretty typical. It's something that we kind of expected. Watching all the games before I even like started to tally all our picks. Just looking at all the games, like there was a lot of upsets, especially against the spread, because according to like how the spreads were, there were 10 underdogs who covered. So you're gonna have a lot of people not get their picks right with that. So, anyways, let's move on to. Oh wait, so overall, I am 79, 39, and one straight up, 62, 55, and two against the spread. Marissa, you're 69, 33, and one straight up, 47, 55, and one against the spread.
And I'm a week behind.
Yes. And my dad is 71, 47, and one straight up, and 68, 49, and two against the spread. All right, now let's get to our picks. So first off, we got Green Bay in San Francisco against the Niners. Packers are a 5.5 point favorite. Green Bay is 5-2. Meanwhile, San Francisco was 4-4. And this one is pretty hard to decide because last year San Francisco was really dominant against the Packers in the regular season and in the playoffs. They routed them both times. Marissa, you know about that, right?
Yeah, and even with how the Packers have been playing the last 2 weeks, couple weeks, um, it's it was kind of hard to pick. But if you look at what happened at the Niners on Sunday, okay, so on Sunday, the Niners came into the game. Seattle's defense, they weren't really great at stopping the run game, and I thought that was the Niners' strength, but they really played poorly on Sunday. Jimmy G had a really bad game. He only completed 11 of 16 attempts. He only threw for 84 yards. He didn't get a touchdown, one interception, and 3 sacks. Ouch.
Yeah.
Plus, after Sunday, they're losing Kittle and Garoppolo with injuries. Uh, George Kittle, I think, broke a small or fractured a small bone in his foot, might be out the rest of the season. Jimmy G, he re-aggravated his ankle, so it's probably going to be Nick Mullins against the Packers. I don't know. I think Aaron Rodgers might be looking for revenge based on how the Niners played him last year, and I just don't think the Niners are at full strength. So, do you want me to go ahead and make my pick?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I'll say my piece.
All right. So I'm gonna go with Green Bay winning and covering. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Green Bay to win and cover as well. Now, they do have a weakness against the run because that's how the Niners beat them before, and that's how Green Bay lost last week to Minnesota, is that they ran the ball down this road. They didn't pass that much. But that's the thing, though, is will Green Bay be able to stop their running? The thing is, San Francisco's offensive line isn't the same as it was last year. So that's, I think, going to be the deciding factor, in my opinion. So I'm also going to go with Green Bay to win and cover here. They had a total off game against Minnesota. They were 5-1 and Minnesota was 1-5. They totally killed them in week one, and of course things change in a matter of time. But it was a game that we didn't really see coming. So pretty crazy overall. But you know what? I'm gonna also go with Green Bay here all the way. Next up, we got Baltimore at Indianapolis against the Colts. Indianapolis is getting 2.5 points. Baltimore is 5-2, and Indianapolis is also 5-2. So Indianapolis is really made me sound a little dumb because I was trying to, delegitimize them. Hopefully that's a word. Because I didn't really think they were that good of a team. They lost week 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they had some less than comfortable wins against the Bengals, who they've been pretty bad all year. And although they did have a nice game against Tennessee this week, really nice game actually, a lot of credit to them. But either way, I just didn't think Indianapolis could be taken seriously enough, especially in a division with the Texans and Titans. Titans, although now they don't look as good, now that they lost Dewan, they're on a 2-game skid. Texans, they have a good offense, but their defense is pretty bad, and they still look a little bit better now that they fired Bill O'Brien. But anyway, back to this game though. When I talk about Baltimore, Baltimore is also they haven't looked too good either in their wins. They get really sloppy in the second half of their games, which is really concerning. And so I'm gonna have to go with Indianapolis on this one because they got a really good defense. Rivers is kind of like calming down a little bit more. He's not like trying to be the master of every game that he's playing. It was really nice that he was utilizing his running backs more, especially Hines, who got 2 touchdowns. No, it's just 3 catches and 2 touchdowns, which is really nice. And uh, what do you call it? It seems like Lamar Jackson and his offensive coordinator, whenever like they're against a good team, they just kind of fall apart a bit. Their creativity just gets worse and worse, and they tend to fall under pressure. And I think that's what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson next week. So I'm going to go with Indianapolis to win, therefore cover. Marissa?
So last week, the Colts started off slow, but and for Baltimore in their game, their defense wasn't great. But I think if for some reason the Colts start off slow again this week, I think Baltimore and Lamar Jackson, I think they could take advantage of that and put up points early. So I think that Baltimore is actually going to win and cover in this one. So,
All right. So that's all? Okay.
oh,
Next up, Phil.
no.
Okay. Next up, we got the New York Giants against the Washington football team in Washington. Washington is a 3-point favorite. Giants are 1-7, while the Washington football team is 2-5. I have such a hard time saying Washington football team still. It's the better thing to say, but still takes some getting used to. But either way, here these are just two really bad teams. One team is making a big mistake by not getting their main quarterback back in, Dwayne Haskins, and the other team is really bad for leaving their other one in, which is Daniel Jones. Watching Monday's game with Daniel Jones against the Bucks, it is honestly just like so painful to see how close the Giants actually came to pulling off a nice upset over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But man, Daniel Jones is just awful. He's not a good quarterback, and he keeps proving that. He's got about 40 turnovers in 20 starts, and I don't know how that's even acceptable. And it makes you scratch your head on why Gettleman chose him over so many other quarterbacks at the 6th overall pick. I'm very critical of Gettleman. I just think he's a really incompetent general manager, and they're really gonna have to look at their future with Jones. He had a couple really awful throws against Tampa Bay. It's like sometimes you just gotta throw the ball away. And I get that he doesn't have a great offensive line or targets, but you gotta throw the ball away sometimes. Just like survive the drive. Don't cause any turnovers. And if you didn't cause those turnovers, there's a good chance they might win. But either way, going into Washington now, Washington they've been okay. Their defense is not bad, and they do show some signs of life sometimes, not much. Because I still really hold it over them that they're not starting Haskins. That just really upsets me a lot. But Kyle Allen, I think he's going to be able to just do enough to beat the Giants. This is going to be more of a defensive game, in my opinion, and I'm going to go with Washington here to win and cover.
Hmm. So I also think it's going to be a defensive game, but you know, Daniel Jones last week, like you said, he was pretty horrible. He overthrew his receivers. He had 2 interceptions. But I think otherwise, the offense was doing okay. I mean, they were in it for a while. They could have beat Tampa Bay, but also their defense was able to handle Tom Brady. I mean, an aging Tom Brady, but still it's Tom Brady. But overall, I think Daniel Jones just needs to be more accurate, and I think, I think they can make those mistakes against Washington and maybe still pull out a win. I don't know. I'm gonna go with the Giants here to win. I don't. I think the quarterback situation in Washington is still kind of confusing. I don't really know why they didn't go with Haskins, but I don't know. I just feel like maybe the Giants can pull out a win here.
All right. Well, this is going to be a close game either way, but I'm going with Washington to win here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. Next up, we got the Chicago Bears against the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. Tennessee is a 5.5 point favorite. Chicago is 5-3, while Tennessee is 5-2. This one is, like if you asked me last week where I was going to go with this, I would have easily said Tennessee. But Chicago, they really uh, made New Orleans work for their win last week. Having a 10-point comeback and then uh, eventually losing in overtime. They had their chance, because they got the ball after the Saints had possession first, which if you get the field goal, you win. So they had their chance to win, but their offense just simply isn't good enough. Foles hasn't really been playing well. He's got 6 interceptions since he took over in Week 4. Tennessee, though, their defense is just more and more awful every week, and it is really holding this team back. Offense, got going when it was too late, and their defense, especially on third down, just they can't get stops, and it showed. Against a team who really struggles with their offensive line. They had none of their opening day starters, and Burrow just ate them up easily. And it shows that they're going to make some changes. They let go of Vic Beasley and Jonathan Joseph during the trade deadline. They weren't traded away; they were cut and or waived. And I'm gonna have to go with Tennessee still, just because Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, they still got a great offense. I think they have what it takes to challenge the Bears, but I'm gonna go with the Bears to cover because I think their offense is gonna get some points every now and then. Because like I said, Tennessee is just awful, especially on the third down, and they're gonna hand Chicago some nice plays. I don't think Chicago's gonna really earn a whole lot on offense, but it'll be close. But Tennessee will come out on top.
Yeah. So Tennessee's defense horrible, but yeah, they weren't able to stop Joe Burrow. And I'm not saying that Foles can move like Joe Burrow, but I think I'm gonna go with Chicago to win. I'm just going with a lot of underdogs here, I guess. But I think Foles, they were able to come back from being down 10 points. They had their chances, like Steven said. So I don't know. I just think that the bad defense for Tennessee is just gonna kill them because like you said, Henry, he's really great, and
You
I
need him to be great for your fantasy
I
team.
do need him to be great. He was great last week, but I still ended up losing in 2 out of 3 leagues. That's a whole nother discussion. But I'm gonna go with Chicago to win and therefore cover.
All right, on to the next one here. We got Detroit against Minnesota in Minnesota. Minnesota is well, I've seen Minnesota a lot here already. They are 4 point favorites. Detroit is 3-4, while Minnesota is 2-5. I need to stop saying. I'll just keep saying the Vikings. Uh, but yeah, Detroit. I was starting to have some faith in them for being 3-3. They had a really bad start to the season. Matt Patricia has been on the hot seat. He still is, especially after their loss to the Colts. Got completely routed. They were able to score in the end, but just too little, too late. And Minnesota, they pulled off a really nice upset over the Packers. And like, they still got a pretty good offense. They've always had a decent offense. Kirk Cousins can be a very questionable quarterback. He's not someone that you should let throw the ball all the time. And it showed it when they played the Falcons a couple weeks ago. He just if you let him go loose, he's going to be too loose. So got to use him just right. The way uh, Stefanski used him, kept stuttering his name. He's a previous offensive coordinator, and it worked a lot against Green Bay. They didn't let him throw the ball much, and they kept running it, which worked out great for them. Dalvin Cook got 4 touchdowns, great for anyone who has him on fantasy. And for that, I'm going to have to go with Minnesota to win and cover here because Detroit, their running game proved to be really weak. DeAndre Swift did almost nothing, and I don't know what's going to be going on with them. and Stafford just has a really unreliable offensive line, and they're going to lose Galladay for a while. So just a lot of pain right there. So I'm going to with Minnesota to win and cover.
I completely agree for the exact same reasons, and especially because they're losing Galladay, who who messed me up last week in fantasy. He didn't get me any points before he left the game with an injury. But I also think Minnesota's gonna win, like I said. But yeah, Dalvin Cook was really great last week, and nobody expected them to beat Green Bay. So I think they can win.
All right, on to the next one. We got the Carolina Panthers and Kansas City against the Chiefs. Chiefs are a 10.5 point favorite. Carolina is 3-5, while Kansas City is 7-1. Gee, I wonder where that one comes from. Well, either way, this one's a pretty easy one to pick for me. Carolina, I tried to hype them up. I really thought they could be a good team. I believe they're 3-2 at one point, but they've been on a bit of a skid since then. Really disappointing for a while now. Bridgewater just hasn't been doing as well. He does what he can. You could say weather played a role in their ineffective offense in Thursday night against the Falcons. Of course, you could say it was just Thursday night in general, because Thursday night always finds a way to just be disappointing in one way or another. But either way, they got beat. Atlanta's defense has been improving slowly throughout the season, and Kansas City has a really good defense on their own as well, and a much better offense. So I'm going to go with Kansas City to win and cover here. Not a whole lot to explain. Just Mahomes is going to be Mahomes. You just saw that underhand pass that he threw to Kelsey at the 5 yard line. That was just amazing to watch, honestly. And I'm going to go with Kansas City to win and cover.
So obviously Mahomes is great, but I think Bridgewater. I think he can get him some points. There's a small chance that Christian McCaffrey can play this week.
I think a decent chance, actually.
Hmm. Well, that's even better for me. I need him back. But I think Bridgewater, like I said, can get him points, but clearly Kansas City's gonna win. So I'm gonna go with Kansas City winning, but Carolina covering.
All right. And next up, we got the Houston Texans against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars are getting 7 points. Houston is 1-6. Jacksonville is also 1-6. Okay. Both something interesting about this match is that both these teams are coming off a bye, which is that doesn't happen too often. So both teams will have plenty of rest, but Jacksonville is going to be playing with their backup quarterback after Gardner Minshew has been dealing with a hand injury and also just hasn't been playing that well in general this season. I've tried to have hope in him, but he just hasn't been coming through. Houston, they've been playing a bit better, at least on offense, because they fired Bill O'Brien. Thank goodness for that. They needed to let him go years ago with some of the decisions he makes as a general manager and coach. And so I'm going to go with Houston on this one. Deshaun Watson, he's still having a really great year overall. Jacksonville just gets worse and worse, especially on just all fronts. So there's really not a whole lot I could really say besides Houston all the way.
Yeah, I can't really disagree. I'm going with Houston to win and cover.
All right. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks against the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo is getting 3 points. Seattle is 6-1, while Buffalo is 6-2. I want to start with saying that Buffalo is not playing how their record is. They've had back-to-back games against bad teams, which are the New York Jets and the New England Patriots. I know it took me a while to say that, but I'm going to talk about the Patriots later because I think they're actually better than what their record says a bit. But either way, Seattle, I already got them winning this one. They really played well. On especially on defense. They had a really bad defense all year, and their defense played a lot better. The only points that they were allowing were in garbage time. So I was really happy with how they did there. Russell Wilson and Metcalf are just still doing their thing by cooking the defenses that they go against. And back to Buffalo, Josh Allen has really fallen down to the earth. Ever since I believe like week 4 against the Raiders, he has just fallen off. He's not playing well at all. Lots of turnovers, not moving the ball well enough, and he's just really unreliable, especially as the game goes on. And so I'm going to go Seattle to win and cover here. Like I said, Seattle's getting better and better. Buffalo just gets worse. And I could honestly see Miami taking the division from them. Their division is looking a lot more open than I previously thought it was going to be.
Yeah, so Seattle's defense looked better against the Niners, even though I'm not sure exactly what the Niners were doing. But Russell Wilson is the real deal. It I don't think this is too early, but I really think he's going to be the MVP. Like I don't think it's a too early prediction. Anyway, and DK Metcalf, he's awesome. He's 6 passes for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. Um, I think they're going to win and cover. The Bills, they almost lost to New England, and I don't think Josh Allen will be able to keep up with Russell Wilson. So, Seattle all the way for this one.
All right, on to the next game here. We got the Denver Broncos against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. Atlanta is a 4-point favorite. Denver is 3-4, while Atlanta is 2-6. So as I mentioned earlier, Atlanta's defense has been pretty decent in their last 3 games. They have only allowed 21 points a game in their last 3 weeks, which honestly isn't really that bad. At least for me, being used to watching the Raiders defense for all these years, I'm really used to bad defenses. But either way, Atlanta's defense has been pretty decent lately. They haven't been they haven't had to do a whole lot, but it's been better than they have been earlier. Even though they still blown some leads. I think that also comes down to how their offense does. And their offense is also going to come down to the health of Calvin Ridley. His absence was really felt, when he was lost, I believe in the first or second quarter of last week's game on Thursday Night Football. And Denver, man, even though they are 3-4, I think they're much worse than what their record says. One of their wins is against the New York Jets, which was a shootout in Thursday Night Football in week 2 or 3. And then their other win, at least, was against the New England Patriots, where they should have lost because they were honestly throwing that game away. Drew Lock was throwing that game away for them, and it came down to a 6-point game, which they honestly, I don't think they really should have won. And then they beat the Los Angeles Chargers, almost said Clippers, last week, and they were down 24-3, and they just found a way to come back. They had a red zone interception that really helps you out, and also some explosive plays, touchdowns of 40 and 55 yards. But I just don't think that this team is really that good. It's more that teams are just choking against them. I really don't think Denver's that good. So I'm going to go with Atlanta to win and cover. I will say that Denver does have a decent defense, but Drew Lock he's okay at quarterback, and his weapons are really limited, especially as they get more and more hurt. So yeah, Atlanta wins and covers.
Um, I still don't think Atlanta's that great either, but I actually went with Denver winning here, but I'm gonna change it just because I think I've picked too many underdogs this week. So I'm gonna go with Atlanta winning and covering.
All right, next up we got the Raiders against the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are a 1.5-point favorite. Raiders are 4-3, while the Chargers are 2-6.
Aren't you going to
No,
mention
2-5.
Aren't you going to mention the special guest?
Oh yeah, so we were paused for a little bit. My dad just got back from seeing his family, and yeah,
How's that podcast going, guys?
going well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, excellent. And how we fare last week?
Oh, so I already went over that before
Okay.
when we started. Would you like
okay.
me to say it again?
No, I know I did bad.
Yeah. Pretty. Not. None of us did great last week. So yeah.
Yeah, let me get this in. Hello, everybody.
All right. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. So Raiders here last week against the Cleveland Browns. I was really expecting that game to be a shootout before the weather came in. I really didn't think about how the weather was going to be there, but winds were averaging about 35 miles an hour, and it started like snowing and hailing there. It was pretty crazy how the weather was, and that really limited both offenses by a lot. Not being able to throw the ball over 10 yards, that affects your offense a lot. And the Raiders were able to come out on top. So Jacobs hasn't really been that great for the year so far, and he came off his worst career game. Only getting 1.7 yards per rush. last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, you could also put that on the offensive line not being able to be fully acclimated with that game because they had a limited practice. But now that they were able to work together much more, it really shows how effective they can be. Denzel Good and Brandon Parker were great fill-ins this week, and Jacobs got his career high in rushing yards, which is 128 and 31 rushes. Really great game for him. Almost got a touchdown, but didn't. But either way, Carr, he did what he had to do whenever he had to throw the ball or run the ball. He got 41 yards himself on 6 carries. Really nice to see him get out and move the ball. And when it comes to these Chargers here, oh man, they've really adopted the Falcon style of playing because their team cannot hold a lead to save their life. And that's how it was last year. All their losses were by 7 points or less, and Chargers, they lost by 1 point last week. They lost on the final play of the game, and this is really sad. Watching them. Because Justin Herbert is doing everything he can to keep them in games. He still makes some rookie mistakes every now and then, but he is a really good player. And with all that, I think this time is going to be shared because you're going to be playing in LA indoor stadium too, so it's going to be much better, much easier throwing the ball, expecting some great passes to people like Henry Ruggs and Darren Waller, some good running from Josh Jacobs. I also see the same thing from Herbert throwing to people like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. But I'm going to go with the Raiders here to win that game just because of the Chargers' inability to close out, and the Raiders have been able to close out games. Chargers can't.
Yeah, so the Raiders, they didn't play great at first. They missed the field goal attempt, but you really have to take the weather into account. And they were able to get the win. And when you look at the Chargers and the way they've been blowing leads and their defense just fell asleep at the end, I do think the Raiders will be able to win this game. I think Carr can really take advantage of the Chargers defense, so I'm gonna go with the Raiders to win.
All right, on to the next one. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Dallas Cowboys. How about them boys? Dallas is getting 13 and a half points. And there's not a whole lot I could really explain besides I apologize to Pittsburgh for thinking that they weren't really that good as well. I said something about Indianapolis because they were beating teams that weren't really that great. But Pittsburgh, they got some really nice wins. They haven't lost yet this year, and they're really proven. Roethlisberger, he's definitely become more of a game manager now that he's getting older and older, but he's still doing his job. He still has decent completion percentage, decent touchdown to interception ratio. He's got lots of weapons. Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, Chase Claypool, who I plan on getting in some leagues because he's just an excellent wide receiver and rookie. And the Dallas Cowboys are just getting worse and worse. Ben DiNucci was awful on Sunday Night Football, and they might not even go with him. They might go with the guy from their practice squad. I don't remember his name, but I just can't expect things to go much better. Everyone in fantasy seems so droppable on that team because I drafted people like CeeDee Lamb and Ezekiel Elliott and even Amari Cooper as well. And just, I really can't take it anymore. And just to get this over with, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh to win and cover. Lisa?
Yeah, Pittsburgh played a really good game all around against the Ravens. Like Steven said, they're just a really good team, and yeah, the Cowboys they just aren't that good. I'm also thinking of dropping Amari Cooper. He's on my fantasy team, and so I'm gonna go with Pittsburgh to win and cover this game. I think they're just gonna dominate, and yeah.
All right. Next up, we got the Miami Dolphins against the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals are giving 4.5 points. Miami is 4-3. Yes, that is our cat there, in case you heard the meow and that other one. Miami is 4-3, while the Arizona Cardinals are 5-2. So both teams here have been playing a lot better than I expected. I had some faith in the Cardinals to have a pretty good season. Miami, they could be an underdog, but I just didn't think they were there yet. But they got 4 wins right now, and they are in the playoff contention as of this moment. They're not in it, but they're definitely in the hunt. And they can really keep themselves in this throughout this year, especially with the opponents they have throughout. And they still got another game with the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills, and then the Jets. Still got to consider that. So those are some pretty. That's a free win right there. Whenever you get to play the Jets.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Arizona, they had a good start, starting 2-0, but then lost their next two in pretty embarrassing fashion, and then they won their next three. So I think this is gonna be a pretty close game. I'm gonna go with Arizona to win, but Miami to cover. Because even though Tua he was serviceable, he did his job by not screwing up. That's all you can really ask for sometimes when someone makes their first ever start in the middle of the season. And that's what Tua did. He didn't even get 100 yards, got one touchdown throw, and not really much else to say for him. It was the defense. The defense was so good against the Rams, forcing 4 turnovers, I believe, in the first half. They were responsible for pretty much 3 touchdowns, even though I'm saying 3 because even though it was 2, with the special teams return and defensive scoop and score, they probably had another one where they got stopped right at the 1 yard line. So I'm gonna count that too. But Arizona, their offense is definitely better. Kyler Murray has much better pocket awareness. He's able to move in and out. He's got lots of great weapons. With DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Chase Edmonds. So I'm gonna go with Arizona to win here.
To a time. Yeah. So, like Steven said, I think the defense really did their job. They carried the Dolphins, but overall, the Dolphins have done really well this year, and I do think Tua again is going to be good for them in the long run. However, against the Cardinals, whose defense through the last 5 games has allowed the fifth fewest points per game at 20.4, um, I don't think the Dolphins are going to be able to win this one. I don't even think they're going to be able to cover, unfortunately. So I'm just going to go with Arizona to win and cover.
All right. On the next one, we got the New Orleans Saints against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers are giving up 5.5 points. New Orleans is 5-2, while Tampa Bay is 6-2. So this one here, Tampa Bay almost pulled a total stinker here by possibly losing to the New York Giants. They didn't. And, like, if you ask me, they had some calls go their way. Thanks, Brad Rogers. I despise that ref. And speaking of Brad Rogers, he's actually going to be officiating the game against the Raiders. And that you heard me right, against, because that's just how I think it's going to go. But either way, they had some calls go their way that I think shouldn't have. And Daniel Jones was giving him the ball, literally giving him the ball sometimes. So it's hard to give him credit for that win. They still got a great defense and a decent offense as well. It's hard to really evaluate this team because they are 6-2, but there are some games where they're just not playing that great. And for New Orleans here, you can say a similar thing as well. Breeze, he's starting to look like this could be his last year, even though he signed a 2-year deal because his arm is getting more and more weak. And I'm going to still go with New Orleans here just because I think their offense will be more consistent. I think they know how to move the ball more. They know how to move the ball better. They have to have a lot of quick plays. And, just seeing how close the Giants made it. And it's going to be a short week for Tampa Bay as well, only by a day. But still, I think that's going to affect them a lot. So I'm going to go with New Orleans here to win and therefore cover.
Yeah, so Tampa Bay's last game, Brady started off slow. So I think New Orleans and especially Alvin Kamara, he's really great. I think that they'll be able to take advantage of that early. Plus, Tampa Bay's defense kind of messed me up in fantasy. So, like Steven said, I mean, it is hard to evaluate this team. Sometimes they play really well, sometimes they don't. I don't know. I think really it's going to be a battle of the senior citizens, Brady and Breeze. So I'm going to go with New Orleans to win and therefore cover as well.
Yeah, and actually, Brady is 1 touchdown ahead of Breeze when it comes to all-time passing touchdowns. So throughout the season, they're going to be trading off that record. And this game could maybe help either of them, depending on who wins, or just who has a better game between those two. All right, now on to our last and possibly least game. We got the New England Patriots against the New York Jets. Jets are getting 7 points. The New England Patriots are 2-5, while the Jets are 0-8. Woo! Uh, all right, so either way here, I'm gonna have to go with New England on this one just because of how awful the Jets are. And I was meaning to say earlier that the Patriots are a bit better than what their record says. You know, 3 of their losses have come down to one play. You know, you got their loss to Seattle, where they lost on the final play of the game, where it was a goal line stand by the Seattle. You know, maybe you could say that they should have ran a different play, but either way, it came down to one play. Then against the Buffalo Bills last week, you got Cam Newton fumbling the ball in the Buffalo's red zone when they could have won or tied the game. Then you also got their game against the Denver Broncos, where they should have won that one as well. Like I said when I was talking about the Broncos earlier, is that the Broncos were throwing that game away. You know, Drew Lock was just kept tossing interceptions, and they just simply couldn't capitalize that on that. And that could say a lot about how bad their offense is, and how much weaker their defense has gotten because so many people opted out of the season due to COVID. But I'm still going to go with them to win this one. But I think the Jets will try to find a way to get a little bit close in this one. You know, both teams just have been disappointing overall, but there's no way I think New England could lose this one. But it could be a little closer than necessary. Marissa, I know you got a bit of a hot take here.
Hear me out. So, the Bills barely beat New England. The Jets barely lost to the Bills. Therefore, I think the Jets are going to get their first win this week. Very hot take.
Mm,
Just wait on it. When I'm right, you guys will look silly.
oh, really?
So, Jets win and therefore cover.
And that concludes our picks of the week. The teams on bye are the Rams, Bengals, Eagles, and Browns. And, well, that concludes our thing. We hope all of you have a great day. Good night.
Good night.
Oh, for real?